Welcome back to Computer Applications. This is Mrs. Hoffman, and today's lesson is about how to format a personal business letter. Now, a personal business letter is just as what the title says. It's for personal reasons, like your own personal business. Maybe, for example, you were applying for a job, or maybe you needed to write to a company to inquire about a product, or maybe you needed to issue a formal complaint about a company or a product or something. And so it's like writing from your own personal standpoint to usually a business. And so a personal business letter has certain components to it, and it's important that you follow a professional format. Remember that these forms of communication reflect on you as an individual, and so you want to make a good impression, and your work and how neat and organized it is, and following standard protocol and format for a letter will speak volumes to the receiver, and it'll also help them to have it'll be more readable for them, and they'll have a better impression before even starting to read the letter. So I'm going to go through the parts of a letter, and then we'll talk about setting it up. So as you can see here, I have a letter here that's been an example letter that I'm going to use for demonstration purposes. All personal business letters should begin with the date. And so you'll notice that the format that I am using is a letter format where you have all of your letter parts starting at the left-hand margin. So you don't have any indents, you have nothing moved over, everything just begins at the left margin. This is called full block format, and it's simple to use, simple to learn, clean looking, and very acceptable and expected in the business world. So we start with the date, and then the next part of the letter is going to be the name and address of who you are writing to. So in this case, the letter is going to Miss Sarah Ching, and she's the president at Web Dynamics. And then you would have what we call a salutation, or a greeting line, and that is usually preceded with the word dear, and then the Ms., Mr., professor, whatever, and then the last name of the individual. And then you actually get into the body of the letter. Notice again the paragraphs are not indented because it's full block style. Normally in your first paragraph you want to give some indication about why you're writing, what it is that what the purpose of the letter is, and then in the second paragraph you normally would get into some further details, or I usually refer to this paragraph as sort of the meat and potatoes of the letter, where you explain further what your inquiry is, or offer more information that is pertinent to your issue. And then lastly you would close with some kind of closing paragraph, formally ending the letter. Then you have a closing. Usually it's sincerely, is standard for personal business letters. And then you have your own name and your own address at the bottom of the letter. And you leave this room here, and we'll talk about how much room that is in just a minute. In this you would actually sign your signature in cursive writing here, and that once you print the document out, that's where your signature would go. Now there's a couple extra lines down here that I'll talk about. These are not present on every single personal business letter. It depends on whether it's warranted or not. For example, the word enclosure. The word enclosure is typed after your address at the bottom of the letter if you are enclosing something else with the letter. So for example, and it's normally referred to in the body of the letter, it says here, enclosed, please find our current product brochure. So that prompts the reader that there's something else in the envelope. And so that enclosure notation is warranted because something else is enclosed with this letter. Now the copy to is a notation if you are sending an additional copy of this letter to someone else. So if you were writing a letter and you were sending it to let's say one individual and also maybe to their boss or coworker, you could write or type copy to and the name, the first initial and last name of the person you're sending the copy to. So If you are not enclosing anything and you're not sending an additional copy, then you just don't put these on your letter and you stop at the end of your address. To begin your letter, you're going to, as I said before, you're going to start with the date, and then you're going to, when you're formatting a personal business letter, you're either going to return 4 times or 2 times. Those are the 2 rules to follow, 4 or 2. So you would type the date, and then you would return or hit enter 4 times and begin typing the address of who you're writing to on that 4th line. So technically there are 1, 2, 3 blank lines, which and then here's your 4th line, and that's where you begin typing. So you return 4 times after the date, and then you also return 4 times after the closing. And again, that would leave 1, 2, 3 blank lines for the 4 returns. Throughout the letter, the rest of the times it's only going to be 2 returns. So for the address, you just type the name of the individual, and then this is your address. This is called the recipient's address block, and you just return once until you finish the address. Then when you're ready to go to a new spot in the letter, you return twice, which makes 1 blank line, and then the second return is where you start typing. And so you just continue that. You return twice after the salutation, type the first paragraph, return twice after the first paragraph, type the second paragraph, return twice after the second paragraph, type the third paragraph, and so on, and do the same thing after the last paragraph of your letter, return twice, and you have your closing. And then again, after your closing, you return 4 times to leave that place to sign your name. If you have any of these additional notations, like enclosure or copy to, you simply just hit return twice for each of those. Now, one thing I would recommend is you want to make your letter look eye-pleasing in terms of its vertical alignment on the page. And I'm going to show you a neat little trick that you can do for this. So if you go to File and you go down to your Print, and a print dialog box will come up. And you can get an idea of what your letter is going to look like. Now, you'll notice on my letter, I have just my standard top margin here, which is 1 inch. But then on the bottom, it looks like I have like 2 or 3 inches. So it kind of looks like it's crunched to the top of my page. I'd rather it be brought down a little bit so that it's a little more centered up and down on my page. So I'm going to go ahead and cancel this, and I'm just going to put my cursor in front of February, and I'm just going to create some space by hitting return a couple of times. And then I'm going to go back in and check it out again, see if it looks any better. Okay, that looks a little bit better, a little more room here. I think I'm going to do one more, and that probably will make it look like it's evenly spaced between the top and bottom margins. And that way, it just kind of gives, again, that little extra polish. So this looks like a pretty even amount of space on the top and the bottom. And, in some other programs like Word and things like that, you can actually set the vertical alignment to be centered, but Google Documents does not have that feature. So we'll just eyeball it and do the best that we can. So that's the format of a personal business letter that I would like you to use when you do your personal business letter assignment. Okay, all right, we'll see you next time.